Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So today on the channel, we're gonna be talking about winter preparedness and survival equipment. Now, some of these items are gonna be more commonplace. Everybody knows about them. Other ones, however, are gonna be things that you haven't seen anywhere before. So you got things to do, so do I. Let's just jump right into it. First things first, I was in Costco the other day and I seen these sheepskin rugs. They were 40 bucks. And I tell you, this thing is soft, man. I would love to sleep on this if I was in the bush or if I had a wood stove tent or something like that. But you know, any kind of fur that you can get at a discounted price, as we talked about in our most recent video where I interviewed that fur trapper, Fernand, then you want to pick that up, because fur in a grid down winter power outage situation, especially like the one they experienced in Quebec in 1998, something like this is going to be very, very useful. You're going to want to get your hands on as much fur as possible. Let me just test this thing out here. Oh yeah, that's real cozy. I think we should just end this video right here. So in terms of something that you can just throw on the ground bushcraft style, like put in a bedroll and roll it up, put it on your backpack, this probably won't work because the leather is not strong enough. It is a carpet, so it's meant to be walked on, but it's not meant to be dragged across the ground. You would need a stronger hide for that. I've been talking to Fernand, the fur guy, and he's been telling me about some caribou hide type options that may be available. Once again, those things come at a high price point, but in terms of winter survival, nothing beats fur. If you're at Costco, pick one of these up. I'm sure you can order them on Amazon as well. This one is just really nice and thick. Now next, this is a far more cost-effective option. These are wool insoles. This is real wool. These were made by Fernand, the fur guy, and we do sell these at CanadianPreparedness.com. This is a quick, simple fix, a $20 fix. This is gonna last you for probably over 10 years at least. He says 20 years. I'm gonna err on the side of being conservative and say 10 years. It's just a wool liner. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if you do have a pair of winter boots, you don't wanna constrict the blood flow to your feet. So if you are gonna be adding a liner like this, make sure there's enough space in your boot that you're not causing vasoconstriction, and that's actually gonna make your feet even colder. But something like this is a great way to increase the warmth of your boot without having to necessarily buy new boots. Now up next is a kerosene lantern. The great thing about this is that it not only gives off light, but it also is gonna give off heat. You can use it indoors, it's safe to use. Kerosene is not a volatile fuel source, so it's great for storage if you're worried about safety. It's long lasting, it's long burning, and it's relatively inexpensive. Go check out my video on fuel storage where I talk about a variety of different types of fuel that you can use to heat your home in the winter time. We go over all the different types of generators and fuel sources, and I'll post a link to that here. So the power goes out, you have to bug out for some reason. How are you gonna keep warm? Well, a lot of people would go and get themselves a wood stove and a wood stove tent. That can be very expensive. You're looking at between $1,000 and $2,000 just to start. Or you can get yourself what's called a stove jack. You can buy these on Amazon. They come in a variety of different sizes. This is just a piece of silicone, and what this is gonna allow you to do is convert any tent that you might already have into a wood stove tent. This is gonna allow you to put a pipe or a chimney through your tent to, of course, vent the smoke out of the tent. And you can actually make a wood stove tent out of a tarp. If you really wanted to do this on the cheap, you go pick yourself up a $5 to $20 stove jack like this off Amazon, and you get yourself a decent sized tarp. And if you go over to Far North Bushcraft and Survival channel, he has a great tutorial on how to do this on the cheap. So if you don't want to invest in a canvas tent or a Russian bear tent or some other lightweight Norwegian wood stove tent, then you don't necessarily have to. It's going to take a bit of work, but this is just a cheap thing that you can get now just in case you might happen to need it later. Of course, it's going to require that you do have a wood stove. You can make those yourself also, or you can buy them pre-made. It's up to you. All right, so up next is this roll of aluminum bubble roll heat radiating stuff. Now you can pick this up at Home Depot, you can get it off Amazon, you can get it from Uline. And a lot of people line certain parts of their garages with this stuff if they want to keep the heat in there in the wintertime. This would be great if you did have a power outage and you needed to insulate a room. Actually, it's not going to provide insulation, it's just going to reflect the heat. So it's going to keep some of the heat contained. So this is just a cheap, easy fix. If the power went out in your area and the natural gas could not be regulated and distributed properly, and you didn't have any heat coming out of the vents, you may have to make a room into a hot room or a warm room where you retain most of the heat. You know, you can use this for camping applications, outdoor applications. So it's just good stuff to have around, and it's relatively cheap and inexpensive. Might take up a little bit of space if you're tight on space. So up next is copper tubing. Now, copper tubing, if you didn't know, you can jerry-rig a water heating system with just this and a fire pit. It's a little bit expensive, I'm not gonna lie. You know, copper tubing, depending on what season it is, how the economy is doing, can be fairly expensive. I think this was between 30 and 50 bucks. But this is gonna allow me to make a water heating system, which is gonna be important because you gotta remember, you're gonna have to keep the water warm enough to drink. Otherwise, it's going to turn to ice. So whichever area you're using to keep yourself warm, you're also going to want to have your water in that area so it doesn't freeze. And water will start to freeze right when it dips below zero. There are numerous DIY videos on YouTube as to how to make a copper tube water heating system. I'm going to experiment with that in the future, which is why I got this, but definitely something you might want to consider. This next thing is something you should probably do before SHTF happens, and this is just to save money on your heating bill. It's just a simple winter window insulation kit. So it's gonna reduce the amount of heat that's escaping through your windows. If you really wanna see how well insulated your home is, you can get what's called a thermal imaging system. They now make them for Android smartphones and iPhones, and they're about $200 to $300, and it's gonna show you where the heat is actually escaping in your house. I've done a review on that product before. You can go check it out. Up next is ice fishing gear. So you get your ice fishing rod, you get what's called a tip up. So what this is, you bore a hole into the ice with your manual ice auger. You know, manual ice augers, they work well. I don't really see the need to get the electric ones unless you're doing it often. I understand why guys would want to do that though. So get yourself a manual ice auger, because if you are by a lake, or even if you're not, you know, and you have to get protein in the winter time and it's a survival situation, the only way you're going to be able to do that in some cases is boring through the ice. Taking an axe to the ice is not a good idea. It's not only not very safe, it's not going to be very efficient either, and it's going to take you a long time. So just get yourself a manual ice auger. As long as you're not an idiot like me and you don't lose your ice auger to the river because you didn't tighten a nut well one time, then you'll be all right. This thing will last you a long time. There's a blade on it. You can sharpen the blade, no problem. You bore your hole, you put your tip up in there, you put your line on there, and that means you can go and do other things. And if a fish bites, this thing is gonna pop up and it's gonna notify you. You're gonna be able to see that this flag pops up, so you'll be able to see it across the ice or whatever. So definitely ice fishing gear should be up there on your priority list. So if you plan on eating snow, the problem with that is that it's not good for you because your body's gonna have to heat up that snow. That's why they say you shouldn't eat snow. It's gonna take more calories, okay, for you to heat it up. The other issue is that snow doesn't really make a lot of water. If I was to fill this with snow, I'd only get about that much water. It's about 1/10 is the ratio, 1 to 10. But you get yourself a stainless steel bucket like this, or a big enough bucket that you can use to collect water, and then you can find a way to heat that water up. Firewood and heat and energy is gonna be at a premium in a grinned out winter SHTF situation. So heating up the water is gonna be a problem. Obviously, if you're in a place where you've kept warm, the snow will naturally melt, but that will take a while also. You can get a parabolic mirror system as demonstrated on the Green Power Science channel. I've shown them off on this channel before. Basically what that uses is the sun's light. It concentrates the sun's light into a beam. It works just fine in winter as well. So it'll provide you a platform to continuously melt snow. Now this is a heated bucket. This is 60 watts. I've used these for my dogs for many years. I had to just pick up a new one recently. And this will run off your portable lithium solar generator. It's going to require energy to heat. However, you don't have to keep it on all the time, but it might be useful if you were just talking about melting snow. Now, obviously, these things are probably not food grade plastics or stainless steel. This is for dogs, so it is for animals. So I'm assuming that there can't be any really nasty chemicals in it. If we're just talking about survival, it's going to suffice. But you are going to want some sort of system to collect and melt water, especially if you're reliant on snow. Now, ideally, you would already have water stored and you'd have a way to keep that above zero so it doesn't freeze. So up next is paper plates. Why paper plates? Because water is going to be limited, especially in the wintertime. Washing dishes and just cleanliness in general, that's going to be a luxury you simply don't have. The other benefit of something like this is that you can use them as a combustible afterwards. So up next is fire stuff. So we have our carbon monoxide detector. If you do have to have a wood stove in your home, or you're running a propane heater inside your home, or whatever the case might be, you're definitely going to want to make sure that you're keeping track of that carbon monoxide. You should have one of these in your home anyways if you live in a winter climate, because your chimneys could get clogged or something could happen, okay? So definitely good to have a carbon monoxide detector. This is a portable one, runs on batteries, so you can use it anywhere. This is just a fire kit. It can be harder to light a fire in the winter time, so it's always good to make sure you have a very fully stacked winter fire kit. You can go check out our video on this fire kit in the description. And of course, fire is going to be a big problem because a lot of people are going to be using fireplaces or wood stoves inside their home. So just make sure you have a way to extinguish a fire if need be. So if you live in the city and you don't have access to a forest to go and cut down your own wood, or you just don't have the time, if you look on Craigslist or Kijiji, you can buy cords of wood. There's lots of people who sell this stuff. This is birch, I believe, and I usually get a cord delivered once a year, and I usually use that for burning around the fire pit, burning in my wood stoves. Sometimes if I'm going out on a trip, I'll pack a little bit just so I, can have enough to kind of get going at my destination. And of course, I'll bring out my tools to harvest more from the land. So don't spend the $10, $15 or whatever it is to buy your firewood at the gas station or 7-Eleven. Just make the investment, spend the $100, $150, order a cord of wood. They'll bring it right to your house and you can stack it outside your garage or your shed. Good thing to have. So this should go without saying if you live in a cold climate, but having a good shovel and a good metal shovel, because those plastic shovels are just not going to last. You're going to want something that you can dig yourself out of a jam with a nice big scoop on it. You also might want to look at those manual push shovels as well, because unless you have a snow plow attachment for your truck, if the grid goes down, those emergency services like snow removal aren't going to be available, and you might find yourself snowed in.
One of the benefits of getting outdoors in the wintertime is the ability to carry large amounts of gear on a sled, also called a pulk. This is an absolute must-have item for any preppers who live in a winter climate. These types of sleds vary in size and price, ranging anywhere from $40 up to $150. Stay tuned for our upcoming video on winter bug-out sleds.
This is something you should always have in any survival kit, regardless of what season you're prepping for. But vitamins are absolutely crucial, especially in the winter time. There's not a lot of green foliage. There's not a lot of fresh produce, depending where you are. So in order to get your vitamins and minerals, you got to supplement. So multivitamins with an emphasis on vitamin D and C, highly recommended. You can use solar panels in wintertime. They work just fine, although there is going to be a shorter day. However, solar systems tend to be a little bit more efficient when it's colder out. Not that much colder, not like -30, but there definitely is a sweet spot. They like the cold more than they like the heat. You can also get a kinetic energy generator like this one. This one is from the K-Tor company. We sell these at CanadianPreparedness.com. And how it works is you can use your hands, or if you want, you can use your feet. And the reason why something like this is going to be useful in the wintertime is because, for one, you're trying to keep warm. So if you have an abundant source of food, you can convert those food calories through kinetics into usable electricity. And you're going to keep your core temperature up by doing something physical. This one right here generates 50 watts, so it's not a lot of power. It's going to get you power to power your small electronic devices. So definitely something you should look into. Now, in terms of food storage, you just got to keep in mind that anything that has water in it could potentially freeze if it's not kept above 0. So freeze-dried food is great, but you are going to need water to mix in with it. Things in glass jars might not do too well if they are freezing and thawing. Other things you're going to need are ways to actually harvest wood. So get yourself a decent axe, a decent wood splitter, and a decent saw. Of course, silky saws, as I let you guys know in that recent video, they're going to be increasing their prices by 20% with this whole hyperinflationary madness that we're seeing. So this is a Silky Zubat 390, my favorite saw. It's just the best, most ergonomic saw to use out there in the field. So, and there's also much bigger versions that you can get, but you're definitely going to want a way to harvest firewood in order to use in your wood stove in order to keep you warm and allow you to cook food. So let's talk a bit about hand warmers. Hand warmers are good. They're disposable. They do work if you haven't used them before, but unfortunately, because they're disposable, that means they're not going to last. You're almost better off getting yourself some Zippo hand warmers. Now, these take lighter fluid, and the great thing about these is you can also use them in conjunction with a cooler to keep food warmer. So basically how it works is you pour your lighter fluid inside here and you light it up and you just close this and this will stay nice and warm. Not gonna burn you necessarily, but it can get a little hot, which is why they give you this little felt pocket here to hold it in. And I have a few of them. And these are great. They'll last for about 12 hours. They provide a lot more warmth than this. They're a bit more water resistant as well, and definitely something useful to have. So this is an old cooler. Now, coolers are not only meant to keep things cold, but they can also keep things warm. And if you throw in one of these that's activated into here with some water that you're trying to keep from freezing, or some food that you don't want to freeze, some canned foods, non-perishables, then put that in here and it should keep it warm. Now, these do require a little bit of oxygen to breathe, so periodically you might have to open it up and give them a bit of room to breathe. But other than that, that's a great use for a cooler in a winter survival situation, is keeping the heat in as much as keeping the heat out. Now, up next are blankets. Now, you may think to yourself, I got enough blankets in the house. You know, I got blankets in the bed, blankets everywhere. You know, it seems like something which is just so common that why would you ever think of having more of them on hand? Well, you got to think, if the power went out in the wintertime, in the dead of winter, do you really have enough blankets to keep warm? Now, this is a wool blanket. This is a sleeping bag. It's just a matter of having a few extra quilts or comforters or wool blankets kicking around, just in case, okay? Just to provide a little bit more insulation. A lot of people take for granted some of the capability that they might have in their home to endure a situation like that. So at least take stock of those old camping sleeping bags that are kicking around the garage. Take them out, dust them off, and just make sure they're all properly maintained and ready to go. Now, in terms of winter vehicle accessories, be sure to go and check out my winter survival roll video that I did last year. I'm gonna post a link to that in the description. I do an in-depth half-an-hour breakdown of all the winter survival gear I keep inside my vehicle. So be sure to go check that out. As I indicated earlier, I've already done a very in-depth video on storing fuel and propane heaters, so you can go and check that out. I'll post a link here. Now, one of the best propane heaters that I've used is this Mr. Heater. There are a lot of different variations in recent years. There's more generic versions of this item that you can pick up. They range between $100 to $200. but definitely a must-have item, especially if you do a lot of ice fishing or winter hunting or just winter camping in general. You don't want to bring out the wood stove. You bring this out with your propane canisters, you're good to go. Also good to have a good way to store your fuel. This is one of my favorite gas cans that I would use to power my dual fuel generator, which runs on propane and gasoline. I just love the form factor of it. This one I'm actually going to be mounting on the truck at some point. It's very, very thick, military grade. We also sell these NATO gas canisters at CanadianPreparedness.com. These are just excellent, better than metal, not going to rust, going to last a long, long time, built exceptionally tough, military spec. The best fuels for heating are propane and kerosene. You can use a generator to run a space heater. However, it's not going to be very efficient use of your energy. Anytime you're using electricity, be it through a solar panel system or a lithium battery pack, anytime you're trying to convert that into heat, there's a huge loss. It just takes too much power to heat things up. So you're much better off using some kind of combustible in order to keep warm. All right, so up next is candles. Now you would be amazed at how much heat candles can create. You can actually make yourself a ceramic candle heating element. I honestly don't know how well they've worked. I've made them before. I've never actually done any videos on them, but I've made them and I actually got rid of one because it was just taking up a lot of space in here. But candles are great because obviously they provide light, they can provide a bit of heat. And Lonnie over at Far North Bushcraft and Survival has a video showing how you can survive in like sub-zero temperatures with just a jacket and a candle. You got to go check that video out. I'll post a link in the description section below. So don't underestimate the amount of BTUs that a candle can give off. Up next are your winter traction devices. So we have our Catula micro spikes. I've done many videos on these before. Going to be absolutely essential if you have to bug out in the winter time. It's icy, you can't really get good traction. Even from a tactical combat perspective, even though they're not very stealthy, they make a bit of noise when they crunch the snow. It's going to give you the traction that you need in order to have sure footing to get whatever you need to do done in that situation. And obviously snowshoes are another essential. You can make your own snowshoes, but again, like everything you can make, it's not going to last as long. If you have the resources, just invest, get something which was manufactured with modern technology. You won't be disappointed. So this is my Nortent Game 6 tent and my Winterwell wood stove. These are more expensive items, but if you do a lot of winter camping, it's well worth the investment to get something that's actually going to be good and is going to work. I also have some lighter weight titanium options. The problem with lightweight titanium wood stoves is they can be a little bit delicate, so you got to be a little more careful with them. So this is the Winterwell Nomad View. This is the medium version. I would actually recommend people go with the large because it's just going to allow you a bit more length to get longer logs in there. You can see your fire in the tent through the window, creates a lot of heat and just creates a really nice ambience. The tent, this is a dome tent. I did a video last year where I talked about the difference between dome tents and cone tents. And they both have their pros and cons, so you can go and check out that video. My personal preference right now are the dome tents. They're just a bit more spacious, but there are a lot of benefits to the teepee style cone tents, namely in that they pack down a lot smaller, and if your center pole ever breaks, you can find one out in nature really easily. So in terms of long-term bug out, I would probably lean towards the teepee style tent, but for everyday winter camping, definitely going with the dome tent for convenience and comfort. So in the dead of winter, when things get really bad, sometimes you gotta bust out the SHTF chains. I did a video on these last year on the channel, and all they are tire chains, okay? They take a bit of work to install, but they're well worth it when you get in the backcountry to avoid getting stuck. They're absolutely well worth it. I'll post a link to these ones in the description section. These are the toughest ones that I found, and you can go and watch my video on it if you want more information about that. Now, winter clothing is absolutely essential, especially for a bug out situation. So let's see what we can find. So about a year ago, I did a video where I talked about the different types of apparel that you would wear at 0, -10, -20, -30, and so on. This is full-on overkill. So we got our coyote mitts. We got our goggles there. Something like this is going to be very essential. Got our balaclava that we can remove. This is an Outdoor Survival Canada jacket. By far and away the warmest winter clothing out there in the world. Far warmer than Canada Goose in my personal opinion. A lot of Canada Goose stuff now is more for fashion than it is for function. But this Outdoor Survival Canada stuff, I tell you, this stuff is built tough. It's got goose down fill. I've done a whole review on the jacket and all the other apparel that you see here. So this might be overkill for the environment that you find yourself in, but if you are outdoors for a prolonged period of time, you may require some heavy duty jacket like this. Now, last but not least is boots. Now, these are Baffin boots. These are extreme, okay? This is for -60 type weather. This is the warmest pair of boots I've ever found. And I have a variety of different types of winter boots that I would wear in different conditions. This is the most extreme. Baffin, by far, in my personal experience, makes some of the best winter boots on the market. Let me know in the comment section below, is there something I missed? Is there something that you stockpile in your winter preps? Is there some new innovation that has hit the market? We're actually going to be testing out some heated gloves on the channel soon, and I'm often against these lithium battery powered heated garments, but apparently this one is actually going to be a winner. So I guess time will tell. But let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Links to all the products that we showed off today are in the description, as well as all the videos that I reference. Stay safe, guys, and stay warm. Canadian Prepper out.
The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com, where you'll find high-quality survival gear at the best prices, no junk, and no gimmicks. Use discount code PREPPINGGEAR for 10% off. Don't forget, the strong survive, but the prepared thrive. Stay safe.